Hey, folks, thanks for joining us. This is Phantoms and Monsters Radio, where the veil lifts one story at a time. Now, if you're new here, welcome to the presentation. Now, tonight, from mysterious lights and missing time to hybrid children and robotic entities, these 9 chilling encounters reveal the complex and dark nature of the alien abduction phenomenon. Spanning over 3 decades from Wyoming's farmlands to the woods of Pennsylvania, each case carries its own terrifying signature: paralysis, telepathic voices, medical manipulation, and emotional trauma. Now, some experiencers were shown infants that weren't quite human, while others returned with scars, missing organs, and unexplainable physical changes. Many describe being studied for their psychic sensitivity, as if they're being targeted by forces seeking to harness human consciousness itself. Now, whether these visitors are extraterrestrial, interdimensional, or something far stranger, their presence leaves behind only fear, silence, and questions that no one can answer. So, in the summer of 1990, a Wyoming woman's ordinary night turned into a haunting ordeal that defied medical explanation. What began as a terrifying abduction experience soon led to the shocking discovery that one of her organs was missing, and no one could explain how or when it had been taken. Now, this account was forwarded to me back in 2010. Rosario's scenario is a bit scary and may verify some concerns involving alien intentions. In our conversation, Rosario seemed very sincere and demonstrated spontaneous emotion when discussing specific subjects. Real truth, I want to thank you for your donation. Very much appreciated. So, Rosario, the witness, states, I want to thank you for allowing me to share my story. I have been a subscriber to your site for over a year, and it has inspired me to share my experiences so that others can be made aware of the complications that humans may face after an abduction by alien beings. One early morning in late summer 1990, I awoke from a deep sleep. It was 3:35 a.m. and still dark outside, though I had been up an hour or so since it was harvest time at the farm. I was feeling nervous as my heart was pounding heavily. I sensed that there was someone in my bedroom, but all I could see was a spot of light in the corner by the dresser. So suddenly, several hands grabbed me from all around the bed. I attempted to scream, but couldn't move or say anything. Nothing came out of my mouth. Now, within seconds, I found myself lying on a cold, hard table, completely nude and terribly uncomfortable. I looked around, saw four small beings in hoods and loose robes standing around me. They were conversing with each other, but I couldn't understand what they were saying, as it sounded like young child's gibberish. I felt something touching me all over my body, but I could see nothing. The being's face had a weird glow with sagging folds of shiny skin. After what seemed like forever, these beings slowly moved aside, and this human like man walked up to my side. He was tall, bald, and had ashen skin. He also had large, round eyes and was very slim. He came over to the table and began talking to me in English. He calmly said that he was perplexed that I was so scared because he had made it clear the last time they met that they could return. He would return to ask a favor. He then turned and raised his hand, gesturing to a woman who walked into the room. She seemed to be a normal human female and quite beautiful. She had a small bundle on her arm and walked over to me. It was an infant, but it had pale skin and didn't look quite human. The tall man instructed me to take the infant and care for it. It needed the love of a human mother since their race did not understand the emotion of love. I told him that I couldn't because I already had a child, and it was hard enough raising my son alone on the farm when times were difficult for me. He raised his head up and down as if agreeing with what I said and passed his hand across my eyes. I must have passed out because I awoke in my own bed. It was daylight and I figured I had been gone for about 5 hours. When I tried to get out of bed, my legs and hips were very stiff and sore. I carefully stood up and noticed two large spots of wet blood on the bed sheets. The experience with the beings was still fresh in my mind, but I had no idea that I had endured any probing or surgery. A few days later, I decided to schedule a doctor's appointment to ensure that I was okay. The doctor recommended a complete physical since my blood pressure was higher than usual and my ankles were swollen. An appointment was made at my local hospital for an x ray and blood work. To make a long story short, I returned to my doctor's office a few days later after the test was performed. When I walked into her office, she asked me to sit down and explain that my right kidney was missing. She said that it was probably missing since birth and was just never noticed. Now, I find this hard to believe because I had given birth to my child and had other x rays in the past. I disagreed with her assessment and was instructed that I would need to start taking hypertension medication and would need to be regularly monitored. I'm positive that the beings removed my kidney and performed other experiments on my body. Although it had been almost 20 years since that encounter, I know that they will return. Lon, have you ever heard of organs and our other body parts being harvested by abducted humans? I sincerely hope I can eventually get some answers. Rosario. Now, when Rosario first reached out in 2010, her tone carried both fear and resolve. She truly believed the loss of her kidney was a direct consequence of her abduction experience. Now, her story aligns with several other cases I've documented where abductees reported missing organs, surgical scars, and other unexplained medical changes following encounters. Now, while her doctor attributed the missing kidney to congenital absence, Rosario's prior medical history contradicted that explanation. The presence of fresh blood in the blood bed sheets, soreness, and swelling immediately afterward may suggest physical trauma or invasive procedures consistent with other post-abduction symptoms. Now, this case raises broader concerns about alien or non-human experimentation and what role, if any, hybridization or biological extraction may play in their activities. The infant shown to Rosario, described as not quite human, may also suggest a link between abduction phenomena and human alien hybrid programs often mentioned by other experiencers. Now, it's been over a decade since I last heard from Rosario, and I can only hope she found peace and understanding, though her story remains one of the more unsettling examples of physical after effects following an abduction. Now, in June 2010, a simple late night walk in Bangor, Maine spiraled into a chilling close encounter with towering gray aliens inside a glowing purple and blue craft. Missing hours, telepathic reassurances, and an inexplicable physical change left the witness questioning reality itself. Was it healing or something far more invasive? Now, the witness was visiting his mother and late at night left the house to visit a longtime friend who also lived in the city of Bangor, Maine. That was in June 2010. It was only a 10-minute walk. However, during his walk, his next memory was having his eyes closed and hearing a calm, soothing, almost hypnotic female voice saying, Kevin, Kevin, it's okay, Kevin. We're here to help. It's okay. We won't harm you. We're going to make you feel better. So when he opened his eyes, he was initially blinded by the bright light that soon vanished, revealing a room. Now, in the room, he saw two gray aliens who were very tall. He noticed that the walls were painted in two different colors, purple on top and blue at the bottom, resembling a trim around the room. Light seemed to emanate from these colors. Now, he asked the aliens if they intended to harm him and what their intentions were. They reassured him, saying, we're going to help you and fix you. The witness noted that his mouth felt like it wasn't moving while he communicated with him. His next recollection was of each gray standing on either side of him as he was placed against a cold metal object and taken down a dark, cloudy hallway that was about 40 or 50 feet long. Now, before reaching the next room, he saw a group of 7 to 8 tall gray humanoids huddled together to his right. There was an exit to another room next to them that led into a white hallway, and to the left of the group was a smaller cluster of about 5 grays. Now, the room itself was round, dark, and foggy, with a dim light across it. The walls were indented, creating a V shape. The air had the odor reminiscent of peroxide or ammonia. Now, as he was taken into the room, he locked his eyes on one of the grays, so tall that he had to bend down to meet his gaze. Strangely, he felt no fear at the moment. Suddenly, one of the gray humanoids inserted a small black tube into his nose, which emitted a faint noise. The humanoid had long fingers and a small mouth that moved up and down like a fish, but it didn't speak. After that happened, he remembers screaming. Throughout the experience, he continuously heard a soft, calm voice assuring him, it's going to be okay. We're here to help. He then found himself slammed onto the metal table and moved to another area of the room. Now, at this point, he became defensive, began kicking the humanoids around him. Now, one of the creatures fell against the wall and then collapsed. The other grays quickly backed away, and his next memory was of being on the side of the road again, confused and tired. A police officer drove by and stared at him strangely, but didn't stop to assist. It was now nearly 6 a.m., and he realized he had lost almost 5 hours. Now, he further described the grays as being at least 7 to 8 feet tall with long fingers, slits for mouths, and small black eyes. And they communicated with him and amongst themselves telepathically. Notably, he had previously had a crooked nose, but it was straight now. The colors inside the craft were white, purple, and blue. So this next account, in the summer of 1991, a quiet family camping trip in North Georgia mountains turned into something out of a sci-fi nightmare. A 9-foot robed humanoid, a hovering silvery sphere, and a chamber that seemed larger inside than out. Was this a close encounter with an advanced being or something even stranger? Thank you, Mortal Clown, for your donation. Much appreciated. So the following report was forwarded to me by a researcher several years ago. It states in 1991, the witness was camping with his family in the North Georgia mountains near a river. Around midnight, while trying to fall asleep, he heard a noise outside the tent. Curious, he went to investigate. When he opened the flap, he saw a 9-foot humanoid staring at him, standing just 4 foot away. The giant figure was dressed in a white, robe like garment and had no shoes or boots, revealing large feet. Alarmed, he yelled, and his wife woke up, coming outside but suddenly freezing in place. The witness was then towed by a floating humanoid to a clearing near the river where a white silvery sphere hovered about 20 to 30 foot above the ground. A large sliding door on the side opened, and the humanoid placed the witness inside the craft. Inside, he was taken down a wide hallway, approximately 35 to 50 foot long, and then into the control center filled with bright flashing lights and consoles. There, he saw up to 20 other humanoids of similar size, dressed like the first one. The interior of the chamber was so bright that it resembled daylight. Next, he was taken into another room with a long black examination table. He was laid down on the table where approximately 8 to 10 humanoids observed him. Although they examined him, he didn't feel or notice anything being done to him. Now, after a few minutes, the same humanoid who brought him inside took him back outside. He was placed next to his wife, who had regained her mobility. Together, they watched as the craft emanated jet fires from its underside and shot away in a high rate of speed. Now, the craft apparently left a 200-yard circle of burned grass on the ground. Interestingly, the witness noted that the interior of the craft was much larger than the exterior. Now, its next account. At just 5 years old, a boy in Kane, Pennsylvania, stepped into a wavy blue vortex that would change his life forever, leading him aboard a massive craft where he met hybrid children and received a medallion from a female extraterrestrial who promised to unlock his hidden mental powers. But decades later, with visions of other planets, strange health effects, and haunting returns of these beings, he still wonders, why was he chosen? Now, this happened in January of 1997. A witness, then 5 years old, got up to get a glass of water. When he returned to his room, he found a wavy blue vortex from which a voice asked, Do you want to go with us? Thanks, Barbara Moore, for your donation. Much appreciated. He agreed and felt a tingling static sensation. Suddenly, he found himself on what appeared to be a polished marble surface. Now, a female extraterrestrial who was about 4 foot tall with milky white skin, a small nose, and no visible lips, as he remembers, and almond-shaped eyes, not as large as those of a typical gray, greeted him in a soft feminine voice, saying, Hello, it is nice to see you again. She led him up the staircase into a hallway approximately 12 foot wide and into a room containing 12 beds, 6 on each side. One bed was empty. He saw hybrid children with medium gray skin in the beds, some of whom were jumping. An annoyed ET told them to stop jumping. Now, the female ET gave the witness a medallion similar to one she was wearing and informed him that she would help him increase his mental powers. She instructed him to concentrate on her inner self and then pass through what appeared to be a solid concrete block. When she encouraged him to try, he could only go part way through and needed her to pull him out. After trying again, he succeeded. She praised him for mastering it faster than she had. Next, she led him through a door that opened by sliding up, where he met a male ET who was taller than the female and had Native American cheekbones. The witness noted that the male seemed to be holding back his emotions. Now, this part of the craft had windows through which he could see into space as well as controls of some type. He looked through the window in the floor into the area that contained a machine he believed to be a teleportation device. The craft itself was a disc the size of 4 aircraft carriers end to end. An older ET then entered and announced that it was time to leave, which made everyone sad. The witness later woke up in his bed, neatly tucked in, something he had never experienced before. Now, at age 8, he saw a similar type of craft and estimated that when it ascended, it was gone in the blink of an eye, reaching speeds of 60,000 miles an hour. He mentioned that they have crafted the size of minor planets, including one that was recorded drawing plasma from the sun, which could be viewed on YouTube. On one occasion, he experienced a vision in which he saw 4 dish-shaped craft in hangars resembling those on military bases. There was a crowd of people who appeared to be in a trance walking into the craft. He pretended to be in a trance as well and boarded with them. Now, inside, there was a bench on the wall with happy gray children sitting on it, swinging their feet. Several older ETs approached him and asked, "Do you want to come with us or stay here?" He expressed a desire to go with them, which surprised them. The vision then ended. So later, when he was 16, he had a vision of being taken to a beautiful planet that was very bright, yet it did not hurt his eyes. He felt a powerful sense of peace. The houses seemed to be made of adobe, and there was one building made of bricks that resembled a college with a tower reminiscent of Big Ben. He was told that this building was where they received knowledge and stored information from other planets. Now, on another occasion, he recalled military doctors operating on his head with a reptilian male instructing them to stop because the boy was in pain. Now, at 23 years old, the witness had Celtic and Native American ancestry. After his experience at age 5, he felt different. He struggled with short-term memory issues and often feels as if he is in his different ages, usually older than his years. He had experienced chronic nosebleeds and difficulty breathing through his right nostril. He also had a cousin who had some similar experiences, although those details were never discussed. Now, if you're enjoying tonight's presentation and want to hear more stories like this, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to Phantoms of Monsters Radio. It really helps us to reach more people who are searching for answers about the unexplained. And make sure to click the notification bell as well so you won't miss any of our live shows or new episodes when they drop. So this next account, in the quiet spring of 2013, an ordinary family night in Portland, Oregon took a disturbing turn that left lasting questions and fears. What began as a mother's sudden awakening during an illness spiraled into a night of confusion, strange medical procedures, and unexplainable physical evidence shared by 2 family members. Nearly a decade later, the witnesses remained haunted by the memories and by the unsettling behavior of their pets the following morning, as if the entire household had been touched by something far beyond understanding. So the witness tells me, "Hi, Lon. I wanted to share an incident that occurred on the night of April 15, 2013, which has troubled my family and me for many years. We live in Portland, Oregon. That night, my mother was suffering from a severe respiratory illness. She woke up in what she described as a drug-induced stupor and saw blurry images of people in full surgical attire. Now, one of these doctors called her by name and assured her that everything would be fine. She remembers a needle being inserted into her arm and blood being taken, but she was unable to speak and felt very confused before losing consciousness. Now, the next morning, she woke up to find a needle mark on her arm, which upset her greatly. My stepfather, who was also in bed with her, noticed that he had a needle mark as well, which frightened him. He had a severe phobia of needles. When he sees one, he must be sedated to have it inserted. He often has to leave the room when my mother has blood drawn. He couldn't recall anything from the night, but felt drowsy and confused. Now, they both asked me if I had let paramedics in during the night, but I was unsure of their question and told them no. That night, I had been surfing the internet since I was working a graveyard shift, I only woke up around 8 p.m. After 2 hours of being awake, I suddenly experienced overwhelming drowsiness and crawled back into bed. I fell asleep within minutes, which was unusual for me. The next morning, I woke up feeling sore all over, but I didn't have any needle marks on my arms. When they showed me the needle marks, I was intrigued. They mentioned that they had likely fallen asleep around the same time I did, based on what was on TV when they dozed off. Now, what made things even stranger was the behavior of my cats the next day. My largest cat, who is usually unbothered by any noise, like vacuum cleaners or dogs, was hiding under a pile of boxes and hissed at me every time I tried to reach for him. The other cats were also terrified and hiding throughout the house. Now, my stepfather noted that the door was unlocked, even though I remember him locking it every night. We lived in a bad neighborhood and always ensured the door was secured. Now, for the past 9 years, we have been puzzled by this experience, and I've conducted extensive research but haven't found any possible explanations. Although I've always had an interest in UFO phenomena, I didn't initially take the alien abduction theory seriously. However, as I delved deeper into my research, I've grown increasingly confused. I've been hesitant to submit a report to any agency, but after coming across your name on Google, I decided to reach out to you. What happened to us? I'm really eager to uncover the truth about this strange occurrence and to find answers. Now, in this next account, on an October night in 2016 near Boise, Idaho, a routine evening of quiet reading turned into a terrifying close encounter. A witness reported a massive glowing craft descending only yards away, followed by a harrowing abduction appearance and mysterious scar that stretched the length of his body. What followed was a chilling silence from authorities and the disappearance of a recording that might have proven everything. So he tells me, "Hi, I was inside my house just outside of Boise, Idaho, reading a book when I heard a roaring sound overhead. It was October 1st, 2016, around 9 p.m. I went outside to investigate and saw a bright white craft that was approximately 120 foot wide with extremely bright reddish orange lights that flashed in sequence. The craft was floating there. Initially, I thought the sound was a thunderclap, but I soon realized I was mistaken. The craft landed about 80 feet away from me, and I saw the door open. Humanoid aliens stepped out of the ship. When they noticed me, they approached quickly. I tried to escape, but they were too fast for me to outrun. I must have been knocked out because the next thing I remember, I woke up naked and strapped to some examination table surrounded by sharp devices. One of the aliens approached and picked up what appeared to be a syringe with a giant needle. It inserted the needle into my right thigh, and everything started to blur. The alien was conducting a full-body examination, but when it was finished, I was knocked out again. Now, I regained consciousness back on my lawn, clothed and clean, with device in my hand. The device claimed a recording of one of the aliens speaking. I went inside to ensure that they hadn't done anything more than examine me. Now, while checking myself, I discovered a long scar running down my entire right side from just below my armpit to my ankle. I genuinely fear for my life. Every time I go somewhere, I find myself looking up in the sky to make sure that the aliens aren't stalking me. Now, in this next account, in April 2022, a Florida woman searching for her crashed truck encountered a blinding, pulsating light that seemed to defy explanation. Now, hours later, she awoke miles away, injured, half naked, and disoriented after an entire night lost to missing time in a storm she couldn't recall enduring. What began as a desperate search for help spiraled into one of the most haunting modern abduction cases on record. So she tells me, on April 11, 2022, around 6:30 a.m., I crashed my F-150 pickup near a friend's house where I'd been staying for a few days after undergoing a surgical procedure. Now, I returned to the house seeking help. but we were unable to locate the truck for some reason. My friend left, and I went to the edge of the woods close to where I believed the car was and continued searching for about 45 minutes. And suddenly I heard a loud buzzing and humming sound. I turned around and was horrified to see an ample, bright light that was so intense I couldn't look directly at it. The light appeared to be floating, pulsating, and blinking. Terrified, I screamed for help and ran into the bush to hide. After about 5 to 7 minutes, I passed out as the light approached me. I was so frightened that I lost consciousness. Now, when I woke up on April 12th, 2022, after daylight, I found myself with no shoes, shorts, or underwear, and I had been stranded in a terrible storm all night. I only vaguely remembered being wet and cold in an unfamiliar location. I screamed for help, but I realized I was deep in an unfamiliar forest. I wandered through the woods to search for a way out and suffered severe injuries from the briars and brush I walked through barefoot. So around sunset, I stumbled upon a dirt path and decided to follow it. At about midnight, I arrived at a locked iron gate. Now I crawled under it. I crawled under it since I could see cars passing by. I walked to one house, but no one answered. At the second house, a lady answered and called the police, giving me a warm bathrobe to wear as I was very cold and almost naked. They picked me up after my parents filed a missing persons report and had been searching for me all day. I didn't share the details of my experience, only mentioning that I had no memory of what had happened. My family assumed that I was on drugs and had been irresponsible. I went to the ER in Jay, Florida, where I received fluids for dehydration and antibiotics for severe cuts and abrasions. I tested positive for several hard drugs that I don't remember taking willingly, leading others to believe that I was an addict. I confided in my mother, who quickly asked if I had seen any bright lights, as I had previously shared with her other strange experiences involving missing time and bright lights. This frightens me, so I don't watch UFO shows or discuss these incidents with anyone besides my mother. I'm still terrified about what happened to me. I requested an assault kit, and the results came back negative. I still have no idea what happened to my missing clothes. I can recount events leading up to the bright lights and those that occurred after, but I have no memory of the missing time. All this is documented. The police had the missing persons report, and I went to the ER at Baptist Hospital in Jay, Florida. The truck, which belongs to my parents, had been reported stolen and has not yet been found. In this next account, in 2005, a Montana woman who helped locate a missing plane through what she described as psychic guidance found herself targeted by forces beyond understanding. Months later, she awoke paralyzed in her bed, confronted by a robotic humanoid presence that claimed to be studying her high mental frequency. What followed was a chilling revelation that she was considered a secret weapon, leaving her forever torn between the worlds of the dead she once communicated with and the entities that now haunted her reality. So I received this account through a UFO research colleague, and apparently these incidents took place in 2005. So she stated, I woke up 6 months after I participated in a search for a downed plane in Rosebud County, Montana. What was unusual about that event was that I established a grid pattern outside of the FAA grid pattern, and the people who came with me to search in the area found the plane only hours after we started that day. Now, the FAA-led search had been fruitless until that seventh day, when people were finally willing to listen to me. I am sensitive, and I was led to the area where the dead pilot found the plane. 6 months later, I had an encounter with some unknown type of robotic being in my bedroom. It was humanoid, but robotic. I realize I'm paralyzed. I can't speak. My husband is dead asleep. I can only scream telepathically, in Jesus' name, you will let me go. I command you to let me go. Hey, I had worked on what I perceived to be ghosts before. The being said, sleep. You will sleep, in this hypnotic voice. I told it to go to hell. I was wide awake, and we went back and forth while I commanded the thing in the name of Elohim and all the angels to let me go. I seemed to be floating above my bed, almost to the ceiling, with 7 things that were making this weird hum noise attached to my head. This goes on for some time, and the mechanical voice keeps saying, "Sleep." Suddenly, a new voice starts to speak to the angry and freaked out me while I'm telepathically telling this robot thing off, and it's a robotic female voice. It calms me down. I asked why they were doing this to me. It says, "We have heard about what you did in the search of the plane, and we have come to see why you can operate on such high frequency with your mind." I get very calm. Then I end up losing time. I don't know anything for a time, as this humming noise took over my brain. It informs me that they are done. I ask them what they found. It replies, "You are a secret weapon." I am a pacifist, and I'm very disappointed by this conclusion. I find myself tucked back into my bed, and my husband still won't wake up. I'm freaking out, but I go back to sleep, still feeling paralyzed. I woke up and record the dream. What is so strange about this is I don't believe in UFOs and aliens at all at that time. I have a first cousin who claims she was abducted, but I have always thought her as being nuts. I had discussed this with my husband for years, but I'm still confused to the core about the dream. Now, as a sensitive, I communicate with dead people. Unfortunately, the aliens are making my life too complicated. They put things into my dreams, and I don't like it. I sometimes feel like I'm in a Star Trek episode. There are a variety of them. They seem to be extra dimensional. I prefer a worldview that includes my dead mother talking to me or a dead actor telling me that he was murdered over these others who were coming through the stargates or portals. I'm scared of being abducted again. So, in this next account, in the fall of 2010, a young couple living in a wooded duplex near Troy Hill, Pennsylvania, experienced a night that would blur the line between dream and reality. The woman awoke paralyzed, surrounded by a group of strange silent beings as an otherworldly light filled the room and her boyfriend began to levitate. By morning, both awoke disoriented and shaken, left to question whether the night's events were a shared dream or an abduction they were never meant to remember. So her boyfriend says, "I'm writing this report for my girlfriend as she is nervous about sharing this story. This event took place toward the end of October 2010 in a duplex in the woods of Troy Hill, Pennsylvania. My girlfriend refers to this as a dream, but the way she describes it with such vivid detail scares me. I believe that it could have actually happened. She has never had any strange experiences before, so for her to have this dream seems unusual. I have witnessed my fair share of unusual phenomena in the sky and genuinely believe in the possibility of extraterrestrial life. Now, I convinced her to let me recount these events as it may have occurred, and we are willing to discuss it further and answer any questions that you may have. From here on out, I will type what she describes." She recalls waking up very early in the morning to find 5 to 6 beings in the room. Now, there was a small one standing in front of her closet, flanked by 2 tall ones, one on either side of the small one. One taller being stood by the base of the bed, and 1 or 2 others stood off to the right of it. Now, the small one was staring at her, not making any sounds or gestures, but from his demeanor, she guessed that he might have been their leader. Now, she struggled to comprehend what was happening. The tall one began to move around the room. At that moment, she realized she couldn't move any part of her body, nor could she scream or react in any way. They were sleeping on an air mattress just a foot off the floor. Because the beings came over and positioned himself behind her head, peering down at her before moving away. He and one of the others then approached where her boyfriend was sleeping. Now, at that point, a bright, shining light burst through the window, illuminating the entire room. Now, as the light brightened, the small ones and two of the tall beings moved towards the window in the light, causing her to lose sight of them. The remaining beings congregated around the light in the window. As they got close to the window, her boyfriend's body began to levitate, lifting into the air. At this time, she focused on her boyfriend rising and forgot about the beings. Suddenly, she regained the ability to move and she began to scream and cry. In a panic, she jumped onto her boyfriend's body and the impact caused him to lower slightly, but he continued to rise. Still screaming, she lost sight of the remaining beings. The light became overwhelmingly bright, and that's the last thing she remembers until waking up the next morning next to her boyfriend, unusually late. She remembers waking up, sweating, feeling frightened, and noticing it was around noon. She felt groggy and disoriented, as if she had woken later than usual. Her boyfriend also thought he had slept much longer than he actually had, and sensed that they had both lost time. He had no recollection of the events that transpired while he remained asleep. Now, after she shared his dream with him, or with me, after she shared this dream with me, I told her about my own experiences with sighting things, strange things in the sky. Now, what truly unsettles me is how clearly she can describe these events, recalling the details and the beings' faces. At the time, we were living with her mom and stepdad, who were in the room next to us. So that's the last account, folks. Got any questions? Feel free to ask. Got any comments? Feel free to say. That's what I'm here for. Dag nabbit, what do you think Men in Black are? I've said before, I think they're the alien cleanup crew. I don't think they're human. I've never really thought they were human. And there's a few descriptions that kind of make me feel that that's the truth. But anyway, I think what they do is they show up when a craft or an alien being shows up and shouldn't have been seen, and I think they go there to try to convince the witnesses or the experiencers not to report it. And many times they end up coming and confronting the experiencer very quickly, even before they get a chance to even think about filing a report. So yeah, that's what I think they are. I think they're alien. For Kerr Furt, do you believe that the 3-1 Atlas is actually a craft, or more likely a psyop? I think it's probably a natural space body or asteroid or comet or whatever. I think the more and more I keep reading, the more I believe that it's just something that we just haven't seen before or have recorded before, and it just may be something of a different composition. There have been a few strange things that have happened because of it. I mean, the makeup of it is of different compounds that they don't normally see in an asteroid or a comet. But I think it's an actual natural being from possibly another system. Mortal Clown, what do you think there are more ET reports than angels? That's dumb, but hey, run with it. I don't know. I don't know. You've never mentioned that to me before, but I don't know why that is. I think it has a lot to do with people thinking that if they encountered an angel or what they believe to be an angel, it's a personal thing as opposed to being abducted. And there's always that chance that they don't want to be ridiculed, but I think angels encounters are just more personal and people just don't like to talk about them. And I've experienced that with witnesses as well who just don't believe maybe that's what they encountered. But it's much different. The encounter is much different than what other people have experienced with alien encounters. So, Sir Wolf, hi Lon. Do you think some of these abductions are the astral body that abducted sometime? Yeah, I think it's possible. Um, I think many times it's possible, especially abductions, as opposed to just close encounters or something other than an abduction. And I do have some interviews that I've talked with experiencers that seem to suggest that. Um, is it like a bilocation thing where you get the physical body and the astral body separating? That's hard to tell. I guess it depends on the situation, but I think in some cases, in many cases that are abductions, I think that actually is what happens. Jose Sanchez, ammonia smell is common around the ETs, but cryptids too. Could there be a link between them? Oh, I think there is something connected there. I don't know if it's because of the ammonia smell or other things, but I think for the most part they're supernatural and they have supernatural aspects to them, and are all possibly able to move in and out of dimensions or through gateways and portals and such. So yeah, I think there's a possibility may be some connection there. Paul, do you like Art Bell alien interviews? Yeah, I've listened to a lot of them in my time. Um, you know, Art he was the original. So, though the funny thing about Art was it seemed like he didn't have patience a lot of times. He'd cut people off, and it kind of made me laugh. But yeah, I did enjoy listening to him talk to people. Anything else, folks? Okay. Well, until we meet again, and I want to thank everybody who donated. It's much appreciated. Keeps us going, and makes me feel like what I'm doing is kind of worth it. So anyway, next Friday we'll be here, and until we meet then, stay well, have a great weekend, and have a good night. Talk to you later.